What's up guys, I'm Mr. Audio, and if you're new to the channel, welcome. In this video, I'm going to discuss the mix bus processing that I did on a particular track called #FlyTalk101 by Grip to Body Rocka. Alright, now this track's unreleased and won't be released for a while. If you like the track, leave a comment down below and I'll keep you in the loop. I am mixing the production on this album, so I'll keep you updated on when it's going to be released. That being said, in this track, I just felt like when I was done with the production, it was just missing a little something something. Just missing a little bit of low end, maybe with some body in the vocals or some top end. I'm not exactly sure what it was mixing, but this is the point in time when I like to experiment around, all right? Now, I've got an idea of what I want it to sound like in my head, and it's just not quite there in the production. You know what I mean? So at this point, I'd be asking myself, what does it need? Does it need more low end? Does it need more presence in the mid range? Does it need more vocal body? Does it need more nasal of the vocals? What does the track need? Does it need more air? These are all questions I'm asking myself. And when I'm asking myself these questions, I'm trying out different analog emulations to add some flavor or saturation to it. You know what I mean? I might even reach for a saturator and saturate different parts, like get a mid-side saturator like Vertigo by Plugin Alliance. These are things that I like to just experiment around with if the track is just missing a little something something. Now, a lot of the times I'm doing this in the mastering stage, and that's where it's really fun. That's why I like mastering a lot. But there are certain things that I just don't do on the mix bus, and I'm going to explain why, because I attempted to do it in this production and it didn't work. All right, so what don't I do on the mix bus? I don't like using waveform critical processes. What does waveform critical processes mean? Well, waveform critical processes just means that any effect that is triggered by what the waveform is doing, all right? EQs aren't triggered by that. Saturation can be triggered by that, but not in a way that is affecting the sound like a clipper or limiter or a compressor would. All right, so these three things that I just listed, compressor, clipper, and limiter, these are all very waveform critical processes. That means the waveform affects how these make the material sound. So for example, all of these processes are going to affect how the waveform looks after they're ran through these processes. So I like to render out each pass for these waveform critical processes in the mastering stage so I can see what it's doing to the waveform, because my goal in mastering is to retain the perceived dynamics in the track while reducing the actual dynamic range in the waveform so that I can push the song louder and gain more perceived volume out of the track. This is bonus points for mastering, pretty much. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about mix bus processing and what I did to this track. Now, I did use some compression on this, but when I brought it into the mastering stage, clipped the peaks off the transients, added a tiny bit of gluey compression, like maybe 1 or 2 dB, it just sounded way over compressed and I was getting unwanted audible distortion. It just sounded crunchy and aggressive, too aggressive. It sounded bad. So I went back into the mix production, turned the compression off, and left everything else the way it was. Maybe I tweaked it a little bit. I'm not exactly sure. I can't remember. But I ended up not using this effect rack. I ended up saving the effect rack, bringing it into the mastering session, clipping the peaks off the transients first, then applying this processing, rendering that out, then adding gluey compression, rendering that out, because that's what sounded the best. Then I ran it through Ozone, maybe even probably a saturator before Ozone too, like Vertigo or something like that. And I ran through a bunch of stuff in Ozone as well. So a bunch of little moves were made in the mastering stage, including this mix bus processing. It was just, I needed to do it after the clipping. And that's just because that route sounded the best. Now this is why I don't subscribe to mix bus processing, because I didn't even end up using this on the mix bus. But the only reason I was able to get it sounding the way this was because I did it in the mix production on the mix bus. So that's what this video is about. Let's get into it. I'll show you each effect and why my thought process came to that conclusion. All right, let's go. All right, so I feel like that was like a long-winded answer, but we're going to show what the effect rack sounds like on and off. And these utility plugins and effect racks in here is just to level match it so that when I'm showing you the Meg, it is level matched better than it is because I'm level matched the entire effect rack on the Mag itself. So let's just go through it step by step. All right. So here's what it sounds like off. She like the way my pockets ball, since she wanna feel it, now I got her on it. As you can see, a bit thicker, a bit more bottom end, a bit more vocal body, maybe even some top end, some air, a bunch of stuff's happening there, but it's adding a bunch of like harmonic saturation. You feel it was like loose and now it's like thick and tight. All right, we're going to discover what caused all of those things to happen. All right, so we're going to shut this off. We're going to shut this off. We're going to shut this off. We're going to open this dangerous Bax EQ. Now, a Baxandal EQ is just an EQ that has a very gradual slope. If you have Ozone, any version, go into your EQ, look at the Baxandal slope, and play around with it. See how gradual it is. And it's just a very nice gradual slope. I like using it, especially this one. It's got some good flavor. So let's check it out. Here's with it off. As you can see, it's adding a ton of top end and bottom end. Let's see what's being added to the top end, and then we'll check out the bottom end. All right, so as you can see, it's in mid-side mode right here. And I'm adding a bunch of vocal presence right here, 1.6 kilohertz. And then I'm also adding on the sides 4.8 kilohertz, a bunch of like high mids to, you know, basically a bunch of air on top of that. So it's giving a bit more crispy presence to everything, and I'm really liking the way that it's sounding. So then we move on to this SSL here, which I'm really just driving it into it for the flavor of the SSL and the curves of the EQ. As you can see, I'm taking a little bit of bottom away here, and I'm adding a little vocal body right there with a normal Q. It's a medium Q, I guess you could say. Let's see what this sounds like on and off, all right? So this is off. You can really hear that flute come out now, and there's a lot more vocal body, but there's also the bottom end feels a bit more tight. It's almost as if that shelf just kind of shaved off what was a bit too much. Let's check out what the Focusrite's adding. Now, normally I wouldn't run one console into the next, but this is what sounded good. Remember, I was experimenting around and seeing what would push the sound where I wanted it to be. So let's just check out what it's doing before we activate it. Okay, we're adding some bottom with a medium Q again. Broad Q here, bunch of vocal presence. Probably about the nasally point, where it's nasally for this artist. So let's just see what it sounds like without. Now, that's adding a whole lot of volume, but it's doing what I needed to do. Now we're going to take the volume away when we check out the Mag here. I've got a utility plugin subtracting about 8 dB here. So we're going to activate that now. Okay, so here's what the Mag sounds like off, all right? Then I'll toggle it on like I always do. She like the way my pockets ball, since she wanna feel it. Now I got her on the helipad. I'm about to get it, seen the Royce on the net. I want it, I was really independent, no record deal, they wanna I did it. As you can see, that kind of cleans up all of the issues that I was hearing before. It sounds exactly what I wanted to in my head for the mix. Now, mastering is a whole different story. It's bringing out everything and making it translate on all systems. So, I mean, for a mix, this is really, really good. I'm satisfied with this mix. Now, let's hear before and after the entire effect rack. I'm going to shut all the gain matching utility plugins off because I gain matched it in the Mag plugin itself. Let's check that out now.
You can hate and debate the way I move around and get it, you too late. Cause the crate stacked up to the ceiling face that I made. At your nigga, yeah, your hoe was silly. She like the way my pockets ball, since she wanna feel it. Now I got her on the helipad, and I'm about to get it. Seen the Royce on the net, I want it, I'ma spin it.
Now, as you can see, we pretty much moved mountains with that effect rack. But like I said, I didn't end up using it on the mix bus itself. I ended up bringing it to the mastering session, putting it after the clipper, after I rendered out the waveform. But that's me. That's how I like to process. Let me know if you like to use top-down mixing and how it works for you in the comments. Let me know how you use mix bus processing. I would definitely like to hear some stories from other engineers out there. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Mr. Audio, out.